Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So, after going back and rereading the Vampire Knight manga, I decided to make a video explaining how I would rewrite the Vampire Knight series, changing up the love triangle with Yuki Cross, Zero Kiryu, and Kaname Kuran, and instead put Hanabusa Aido in Kaname's place. This rewrite is going to be my personal opinion based on the source material given, as I disliked how the Vampire Knight manga story went after Volume 9, especially with Zero's character during the second half of the series, so I will insert images from both the manga and anime onto here. I will caution that there may be some spoilers in this video for those that have not watched the anime and or read the manga past where the original anime stopped airing. As for the side characters like Kane, for example, they will be mentioned and have respective roles to go along with the rewrites surrounding the revised love triangle. I will be splitting this rewrite up into a few parts just because it is quite a bit to go over while I reread the original manga. First off, before I begin, I will briefly go over Kaname and Zero. So I actually found Kaname's character to be complex and interesting in the manga when he wasn't being creepy to Yuki. So Kaname will still be actively involved in the plot, however he would have a more antagonistic role than he did in the manga when he's present, and of course not trying to creep on Yuki, having a sister complex while still watching her at the same time. Like with the majority, I was uncomfortable with the incest plot points surrounding the Kuran family, so I will scrap that entirely and just focus on the backstory surrounding the Kurans when necessary. For Zero, his character arc will remain pretty much the same, with how he struggles to cope with his vampire powers and eventually become a successful vampire hunter. However, will be rewritten a bit as well to still make the revised love triangle fit. The only difference I would do with him in this rewrite is maintain his feelings for Yuki as the childhood friend, be less angsty, and try not to suck her blood too much like a drug. Okay, so here's how this rewrite's going to work. We will make a lot of changes to the main protagonist, Yuki Cross, from the beginning with her backstory. Unlike in the series, she'll be less annoying and naive. She will of course still have her naive moments, and of course be a bit stubborn. However, she will grow up in the Aido family household instead of living with the headmaster. Alright, Season 1. So instead of Kaname finding her at the beginning of Chapter 1, it is Headmaster Cross who does. Cross shoots and kills the vampire. Little Yuki ends up collapsing due to the harsh cold. Because Cross knew who Yuki's parents were, he picks her up and takes her to his car. When the headmaster proceeds to talk with Yuki, of course having no memory of her family before she turned human, Cross thinks about taking her to Nagamichi Aido's home. When Yuki wakes up on the drive close to the destination, Cross assures her that there is a nice respectable vampire family living here with children Yuki can socialize with. Of course, with Yuki still being half asleep, not fully understanding what's going on, she stays in the car as instructed while Cross knocks on the mansion door. A servant of the household lets him in with little Yuki and escorted him to Nagamichi's office room. Nagamichi, being aware of the Vampire Hunter Society, is put off with Cross visiting. However, Cross explains where Yuki came from and that it was Yuri Kuran's wish to see their little girl grow up happy, and Cross responded after being questioned by Mr. Aido that he did not want to take Yuki to the Hunter Society so that they would not risk finding out who she really was, while asking Nagamichi to make up a backstory for her and a last name, for example. Nagamichi agrees as long as Cross keeps his visits to Yuki at a minimum between his vampire hunting business. A young Hanabusa Aido walks out from his private study. Nagamichi introduces his son to Yuki. Hanabusa glares at her and walks away at first. When Yuki and Hanabusa are in their preteen years, Yuki starts teasing him by taking his books just to get him to pay attention to her, as well as mend her boredom. These things of course annoy Hanabusa's private tutor, Miss Nagasaki. Yuki tries to be on her best behavior so that she would not receive harsh scolding, however she usually ends up getting the short end of the stick, leaving Hanabusa with little to no consequences for playfully teasing and making fun of her. When Kane and Ichijo visit on scheduled playdates with Hanabusa, they raise eyebrows as to why Hanabusa enjoys pestering Yuki, such as making her trip and fall on the floor much to his amusement. Unlike Ichijo, Kane is the only one who knows of Yuki's secret, having a sixth sense, given that her hair color is familiar to him. One day, Yuki overhears Nagamichi talking over the phone with Cross, discussing who could have possibly murdered two nobles of a vampire hunter family, while discussing about a missing child. Yuki, not wanting to be seen accidentally, overhears the conversation. This is, of course, referencing Zero's backstory like in the series. Nagamichi spots Yuki treating her like one of his own children, despite being a ward, living in the Aido family household as a human. He thinks that whenever Yuki awakens her powers whenever at a suitable age, he has plans to have her be a fiancée to his son, Hanabusa. Sometime after, Yuki ends up meeting a young Zero when Headmaster Cross makes one of his irregular visits to the Aido mansion and explains that Zero is the missing child and being cared for by the Hunter Society, while having brought him over to be a playmate with Yuki. This, of course, being kept secret from Yuki that Zero is secretly a human turned vampire, and with Zero maintaining his hatred towards vampires. Hanabusa and Zero cross paths. Both glare at each other, with Hanabusa thinking he is just in the way. Yuki looks confused but decides to pay no mind, as she knows how Hanabusa is more by the books rather than the social type around this age. She smiles at Hanabusa, introducing Zero to him. When Hanabusa looks at Yuki with her smile and large brown eyes, he gets flustered and walks away. Now, here is where some tension between Yuki and Hanabusa starts when they begin their teen years, at least a year before enrolling in Cross Academy. Hanabusa refers to Yuki as a naive and clumsy human girl, calling her dumb and insignificant. While he meant it in a teasing way that one time, Yuki proceeded to slap him and run off crying, being unable to come up with a sufficient remark back at him. This is when Yuki, during her free time from her study sessions and family gatherings, visits Headmaster Cross to hang out with Zero on the weekends, watching Zero's shooting lessons, with Mr. Aido's permission, of course, given that Cross was the one who saved her life. Yuki one day sees Zero scratching blood from his neck, harming himself, and she proceeds to comfort him, with Zero not yet telling her why. Without Yuki being around as much during the weekends, Hanabusa, like in the canon series, is introduced to a young Kaname. Like with Zero, Hanabusa glares at him, favoring his ego over anything else. Kaname, when both were alone, immediately sees through Hanabusa's fake smile that he puts on. Kaname proceeds to ask Hanabusa if he knows about a former vampire hunter named Kind Cross. He nods, and Kaname explains that the headmaster put together a school where both vampires and humans can coexist and attend. Kaname says he will be attending and invites Hanabusa to do the same in exchange for helping him with conducting research. Kaname at this point does not yet know Yuki is staying with the Aidos. With Nagamichi's approval of Hanabusa attending Cross Academy for the night class, Yuki will do the same for the day class since Headmaster Cross encouraged it, so Yuki can have Zero be with her and keep an eye on her. Zero in this rewrite is actually a top student in the day class, with Yuki striving to try and match up to be smarter, given that Hanabusa called her dumb, for example, while at the same time possibly falling for him due to his brilliant mind while disliking his playboy attitude. Episode 1. Okay, so now we begin to present day after the flashback segment to the series start close to the end of the first year. Zero is of course aware of Yuki's growing crush on Hanabusa, much to Zero's annoyance, and teases her for it here and there, despite his dislike for Hanabusa and the vampires. Yuki, instead of having a crush on Kaname, is quite disturbed by his interactions with her, here and there. Like in the series, he remains cordial with Yuki, as he recognizes her face, but does not know where she was staying before entering Cross Academy, and before meeting her at the Cross Academy entrance ceremony. Kai and Cross made up a genuine excuse to Kaname that she was staying at the Hunter Society on weekends, while sleeping at homeless shelters during the week. Ichijo, of course, remembers Yuki from childhood, and knows how close she is with Hanabusa. On Kaname's behalf, he thanks Yuki for her hard work. While Yuki resumes her patrol and spots two day class girls sneaking out past curfew, she apprehends them. Hanabusa and Kane approach her when they smelled Yuki's blood. Yuki greets them, however not formally, with Hanabusa being there, knowing he too can be in trouble. The girls squeal at their presence, however glare at Yuki when Hanabusa casually walks over to her with a teasing smirk on his face, now that they are cordial again, but also rivals over their academics, despite being family at the same time. So of course, after Hanabusa teases Yuki about the scrape on her hand, knowing how alluring her blood scent is to him, he takes her hand in his. Yuki gets flustered and distracted, not noticing that Hanabusa punctured his fangs onto her neck. The girls faint. After he only drank one drop of Yuki's blood as she struggled in pain, Zero points a gun right at Hanabusa's face.
学内での吸血行為は一切禁じられている。血の香りによって正気を失ったか、ヴァンパイア。ゼロ、ダメ。でも、もう味見しちゃった。
Yuki begins to feel sick, however does not awaken her pure-blood vampire force yet. That's still Season 2, and in this rewrite, I want to add that it takes more than just puncturing skin on the neck alone before turning into a vampire. Like in the series, Zero threatens Hanabusa. However, instead of firing the bloody rose with Yuki aiming the gun at a tree, Yuki gets between Hanabusa and Zero with Artemis on hand to stop the fight, knowing full well the two don't like each other. Zero keeps the gun on hold, but does not notice Yuki's punctured neck wounds. Because in this rewrite, Hanabusa barely got a taste of her blood, she does not awaken her vampire powers immediately. And the same stuff happens like in canon. Hanabusa gets suspended for 10 days and slapped by Kaname. Kane asked Hanabusa what he was thinking, and he responded with that he just found her blood irresistible. Kane sympathizes with his cousin, knowing how much he cares for Yuki, however just does not want to show it. Episode 2. Okay, so like in canon, this episode has the same with Zero choking over the bathroom sink because of the blood tablets with memories of the vampire that killed his parents. Kaname is waiting for something to happen. Hanabusa senses a suspicious feeling from Kaname as he works on his research. So, St. Chocolate's Day happens like normal in the canon series, except Yuki spends nearly the whole night after her patrol making chocolate to give to Hanabusa. She knows she has to put on a straight face because she does not like him teasing her sometimes. Because Yuki's not the best cook, she only ends up making one handmade chocolate and ends up buying chocolate the day before at the store. Back at the Moon dorm, Hanabusa makes a bet with Kane on who gets the most chocolates. The gates then open for the night class males to receive chocolate from the girls. Hanabusa asks one girl what her blood type is, but Yuki catches this and immediately gets annoyed at his flirtatious attitude, knowing full well he wants their blood. Kaname only accepts a few chocolates and then decides that his hands are too full before walking back to the night class building. Thanks to Zero helping Yuki keep the day class girls under control and then take them back to their dorms, she holds the box of store-bought chocolates and then proceeds to walk over to Hanabusa and hands him her box of chocolates. At first he glares at her and questions her, saying if it was some kind of practical joke to get back at him. However, Yuki says she's serious. He gets flustered, takes her chocolate, unable to tease her back, and briskly walks back to the night class building. Kane watches the interaction between Yuki and Hanabusa before following his cousin. Yuki walks back to meet up with Zero stating to Yuki that poor Aido-senpai is going to risk getting food poisoning. Yuki states that she did not give him her homemade chocolate, much to Zero's relief, surprise, and horror. Kaname hands all the chocolates he received to Seirin and wonders why Yuki did not give him chocolate. While on patrol, Yuki looks for Zero only to realize that everyone's gone. During the night class lessons, Kaname notices two of the night class students, Ichijo and Seirin, are both missing. Like in the canon story, the scene switches to Zero, who is still suffering from his attack. The missing night class students snuck off to approach him and try to pick a fight. Hanabusa Aido especially was ready to pick a fight with Zero, as he was still angry that Zero put his gun near his head, and he was extremely jealous of him at the same time being Yuki's close friend. Kane sees his cousin's frustrations, knowing full well that he's not fond of Zero, and tries to stop this but is knocked to the ground by Zero instead. Zero then challenges them. Hanabusa freezes the ground between them. Annoyed at Zero knowing how close Zero is with Yuki, Kane produces fire.
Kuran 寮長に知れたら怒られるぞ。桐生もそんなもの引っ込めろ。かっこ悪い。うるせえ。面白い。来いよヴァンパイア。ちょうどイラついてたところなんだ。そういう態度が生意気だって言ってんだよ。人が仲裁してやろうって言ってんのにどうなっても知らないぜ。ちょっと待った喧嘩は禁止。生徒手帳にそう書いてなかった？
However, glaring and hearing the commotion, Yuki appears and tries to break up the fight before it starts, glaring at both Zero and Hanabusa for acting like spoiled children again. The night class students then head back to their lessons, Hanabusa turning his head with the temperature dropping. However, Kane ushers him to move and let it go. Zero refuses to answer Yuki's questions about the blood tablets she found earlier that Zero dropped. Zero makes up an excuse to Yuki, saying that he got them from the night class for an extra credit assignment. Yuki is confused as to why Zero would need extra credit, being the top student in the day class, however decides not to further question him. Like in the canon story, Yuki gives Zero her handmade chocolate after discovering Zero has been keeping blood tablets, not yet knowing Zero is a vampire. The night class students apologize to Kaname, who forgives them, however notices Aido not happy and bored during the lessons. The episode ends with Zero trying to take blood tablets when he returns back to his dorm room. Episode 3. After Headmaster Cross cooks both Yuki and Zero a nice meal upon doing a good job as prefects, the night class students prepare for room inspection as sunset arrives. Hanabusa sleeps in his bed. Kane wakes him up, urging him to clean up his room. Besides having a few books scattered near his bed, like in canon, Hanabusa collects used junk from Kaname for both treasure and side research. Hanabusa is stubborn about it until, like in canon, Kaname enters the room. Then he proceeds to quickly clean up. This time, Kane helps him out in order to not receive another slap. Ruka walks by, seeing Kane helping his cousin with cleaning, and blushes when in front of Kaname. In the Sun dorms, like in the series, Yuki sorts through photos confiscated from the day class students taken of the night class students without permission, receiving continued criticism from the girls, especially Hanabusa's admirers for some reason. With Zero skipping patrol duties, Yuki visits Zero in the barn, seeing him with his horse taking his blood tablets. Yuki confronts Zero, asking if consuming them was part of his extra credit assignment. Zero dodged her questions and began walking to the moon dorms for the inspections. Before arriving, Yuki asks Zero again as she gets suspicious. Like in the canon series, both trip and fall with Yuki grabbing Zero's blood tablet box. Because Yuki was raised in a noble vampire family as a house ward in this rewrite, She had a good idea of what blood tablets are to vampires. Zero grabs the box before walking off. As Yuki was about to follow him, Kaname comes up behind her and kindly asks Yuki to inspect the dorms. Unfortunately, there was no way Yuki would be able to get herself out of it, so she went on in. Later on, Zero walks out across Academy. However, instead of Yuki following him like in the series, this time Hanabusa follows Zero, skipping class to interrogate him and ask questions surrounding the blood tablets he's taking. Zero suspected Yuki told Hanabusa and has suspicions that Zero is a vampire. With the outdoor temperature dropping slightly, with Zero refusing to talk about it with Aido, Yuki steps in as she was silently following him, knowing full well he would try to rile Zero's emotions up. Yuki has a memory relapse of flashbacks of her past and experiences a headache, as well as a slight pain on her neck where Hanabusa bit her. Both guys ask Yuki if she is okay. Yuki bears a smile, says she's fine before returning back to the moon dorm to finish the inspection. Upon returning back to the moon dorms, Kaname spots Yuki and asks why she suddenly ran off in the middle of the dorm inspection, and Yuki said she was just a bit under the weather. As Yuki prepares for her evening patrol, Sayori notices how tired and pale Yuki looked, however did not pay much attention as she suspected Yuki was just tired of staying up late. Like in the series, Kaname, however, only difference being that Aido informed him that Zero might be one of them to the headmaster. However, Kind Cross explicitly states that he wants Zero to try and live a somewhat normal life. Kaname, not wanting to tell the headmaster who killed Zero's parents, knows more than what he's saying. When a lot of the other students are in night classes, Zero's bloodthirst gets stronger. Yuki finds Zero. Of course, he warns Yuki not to come near him. Yuki asks why, but then notices the red color in Zero's eyes. Shocked but not scared, Yuki just asks Zero how long has he been a vampire. However, Zero in a bloodthirsty state proceeds to grab her hand. Zero then notices a familiar neck wound on Yuki's neck that was covered up by a bandage. Remember in episode 1, Zero did not initially notice this. Zero does not end up biting Yuki in the scene like in canon, but instead apologizes for not telling her earlier his secret. Yuki puts her trust in Zero and offers to do what she can for him in terms of maintaining his bloodlust. Episode 4. Kaname can smell Yuki's blood, as well as Hanabusa. Kaname asks Hanabusa to follow him over to where Yuki is. Yuki notices footsteps coming toward them. She glares at Hanabusa, of course, still being reminded of the neck wound he inflicted on her that night. Hanabusa can only stare back with a pained yet serious expression. Yuki, from lack of sleep and developing another headache, passes out. Hanabusa catches her and lets Kaname know that he'll take her to the infirmary. Kaname nods back at him, giving him permission in doing so, before returning back to calm down the night class students. Like in the series, Headmaster Cross speaks to Yuki about Zero and why he was brought under his care. This part remains the same as in the canon story. After Yuki wakes up from the infirmary, she struggles to remember what happened after Zero told her he was a vampire. She recalls a pair of arms catching her before she passed out, but has no memory of it. When leaving the Moon Dorm Infirmary, Hanabusa was waiting by the stairs for Yuki, unable to forget her son of blood since hitting his teens while feeling guilty about her current condition. He thought that Yuki could have been in much worse condition if he actually drank more than a drop of blood from her neck. Yuki spots him, however, was still half asleep and did not have the energy to nag him, as she saw two men wanting to speak with him regarding research matters. Because Zero did not bite Yuki, he was able to show up to class the next day. Kaname discusses with Headmaster Cross regarding Zero's possible fate. Like old habits when she was raised at the Aido house, Yuki hid so she could listen to the conversation for a bit before walking back to the moon dorms to ask Hanabusa if anything happened last night that she could not remember. Hanabusa greets her, however Yuki was not in the mood for his teasing and wanted to talk to him about what Kaname was discussing with Headmaster Cross. Hanabusa explains that Kaname is busy and whatever she has to mention to put it directly through him to deliver. Hanabusa looks again at Yuki's neck wound that was bandaged up that he inflicted a while ago that surprisingly didn't fade yet, and wanted to apologize for acting impulsively that night. However, his fragile ego would not break him, and becomes irritated thinking if Zero actually bit her. Like in the series, the temperature proceeds to drop with the ice covering Yuki's neck ribbon. She's not afraid of Hanabusa as she recalled from childhood him icing her feet to the floors so she would get in trouble instead of him. She was about to slap him when Kaname shows up, assuring Yuki that everything is okay. Like in the series, this part remains the same from here. Hanabusa's ice powers are cancelled out, he gets slapped by Kaname, and then sent to his room.
ゆうべ、教室に突然血の匂いが流れてきて、僕たちは驚いたよ。僕だけはすぐに気づいたけどね。ゆうきちゃんの血の匂いだって。もうイラつく。ゆうきちゃんって要様の何なのさ。足元が凍りついて。ねえ、ゆうきちゃんって要様の何？知ってる。そっか、君の血は要様のものなのか。でもその髪跡要様のものじゃないね。いつか君のこの首筋に要様の唇が優しく触れ、牙がゆっくりと突き立てられるんだ。要様が自分の血を飲み下してくれる音がしたら、ゆうきちゃんきっと感じちゃうよ。そうだ、今すぐにでもお願いしなよ。私の血を飲んでくださいって。何勝手に。恥ずかしいんだ。アイドル先輩、いい加減に。やめなさい、ユキ。要様。誰がこんなことを望んだ？いえ、出過ぎた真似をいたしました。申し訳ございません、要様。下がれ。はい、嫌な思いをさせたね。ごめんね、ユキ。
Kaname, however, asks Yuki not to come alone to the moon dorms from this point onward and bring Zero. Kaname, however, notices how close Hanabusa and Yuki are, given that sometimes Hanabusa sneaks with Kane out to find Yuki, and noticed Yuki's neck wound that she covers up with her uniform only a pureblood vampire would inflict. Before Yuki could ask about Zero, Kaname read her mind and said that Zero will eventually degrade to a level E vampire if he does not get enough blood, and that surviving alone on blood tablets won't be sufficient enough. After Yuki leaves, Kane secretly overheard the conversation after seeing Hanabusa walk to his dorm with an annoyed expression. He asks Kaname why Yuki was no longer allowed to visit the moon dorms by herself anymore. However, Kaname did not provide him with a clear answer. Okay, so with Zero here, he does not try to hold the bloody rose to his head and, have an angsty scene take place. Because Zero in this rewrite is less angsty, he puts his trust in Yuki, knowing she can help him maintain his bloodlust. Yaguri, of course, will still come to Cross Academy and investigate the vampires, including Zero. Episode 5. Okay, so this episode will be more or less the same. However, Zero will be less depressing and Yuki being more confident. She even responds back to Hanabusa's question to save her a dance in order for him to make up for biting her neck. Episode 6. Okay, so because this episode primarily focused on Zero, there's no need to rewrite it. Just that Kaname not being very creepy to Yuki. Episode 7. Okay, so this episode is where Zero begins to sense more of Yuki's romantic feelings toward Hanabusa through her blood, and figures out that neck wound he saw on Yuki's neck that was taking a while to heal was from him that night. For Yuki, there's a flashback where she recalls of Nakamichi welcoming Yuki into the Aido family, especially around his daughters, much to Hanabusa's teasing and making fun of her for his amusement. Like in the canon series, Yuki sees Kaname drinking Ruka's blood. Because Kaname explicitly forbid Yuki visiting the moon dorms alone during her patrols without Zero, she quickly runs off in order to not be spotted. As she runs, she spots Hanabusa leaning against a tree reading a book. Since both of them are now cordial with one another, Hanabusa notices the fearful look on Yuki's face, but does not question her given that Kaname let him know that Yuki was no longer allowed to visit the moon dorms without Zero. Without thinking, Yuki hugs him to cope with her growing anxiety around Kaname and his vampire powers. When Hanabusa secretly escorts Yuki back to the sun dorms while Kaname was busy feeding off Ruka, she finds Zero waiting for her. Of course, both Zero and Hanabusa look at each other with discontent. However, Hanabusa explains that he was making sure Yuki returned back to the sun dorms safe, as Kaname forbid her from going to the moon dorms alone. Zero, of course, lectures Yuki for her stubbornness, and said he considered himself lucky that Hanabusa found her rather than Kaname. Episode 8. Okay, so this episode rewritten starts off with just Kaname recalling what happened when Zero attempted to drink Yuki's blood. Like Zero, Kaname noticed a neck wound that was not free, however slowly healing, with Yuki telling him that it was nothing to worry about. However, Kaname knew that it was a pure blood vampire neck wound. While in his room, Ichijo walks in to check on him, with the other night class students gathering with concern, except Hanabusa, who is preoccupied helping out with Kaname's research in his room. Like in canon, Ichijo was handed a piece of paper from a servant with a note saying his grandfather Ichio is coming to visit. Kane and Ruka walk over to Hanabusa's room to inform him, which leaves him getting up with his documents scattered on the floor for the visit. This scene plays out the same. Hanabusa speaks up for Kaname's sake and gets slapped. Hanabusa did not understand why he deserved the slap this time. While holding in his face in pain, he glares at Kaname, and the rest of this episode plays out pretty much the same. Episode 9. The parts with Zero remains the same in this episode with the pure blood that killed his family. The upcoming ball is the hot gossip amongst the day class girls, since they will have the opportunity to dance with the night class students. When the night class comes out, Yuki struggles keeping them in line. Like in the series, Hanabusa sees Yuki and drags her inside the building, closing the door behind them. Hanabusa wanted to take the opportunity to ask Yuki to be a date for the upcoming ball, since she was unable to visit the moon dorms by herself, and didn't see her as often. However, Kaname interrupts him to tell Yuki to be more careful when on her prefect duties. Zero knocks on the door asking if Yuki was alright, seeing Hanabusa take her, and if she needs his help. However, Yuki replies back saying that she is fine. The rest of the episode remains pretty much the same, with Maria transferring into the night class, Hanabusa spying on Maria, Yuki giving Maria a tour of the Cross Academy, Hanabusa helping Zero out of respect with Maria having a possible connection to the pure blood vampire that killed his parents. Zero interrogates Maria much to Yuki's protests and warning her to stay away from Maria, etc. When Hanabusa gets another opportunity to try again asking Yuki to be his date for the ball, he hugs her from behind, whispering in her ear saying to Yuki, "Be my date?" The only word Yuki could make out from that was date, and starts nodding accidentally, referring to Hanabusa as Aido-senpai, due to getting flustered and embarrassed. Seeing the look on her face indicates a silent yes to him from Yuki regarding the ball, before Zero asks Yuki that he wishes to speak to Hanabusa privately. Because Yuki in this rewrite is not academically incompetent, having grown up in the Aido household with Miss Nagasaki's tutoring sessions, her class gets to have fun at the ball. Episode 10. Alright, continuing on. Stuff with Zero's character arc remains the same. However, Hanabusa approaches both Yuki and Zero as he was secretly following Maria. Like with Zero, he asks Yuki to stay away from Maria even during the ball. Zero proceeds to ask Hanabusa if he was the one responsible for causing Yuki's migraines, as he wanted to know, given that Yuki had not been her usual self recently. Yuki, however, requested Zero to drop the matter and said nobody was to blame for her current physical condition, and not to worry about her as she returned back to the dorms. As Yuki leaves, Hanabusa apologizes to Zero, also worried about Yuki, and mentions to Zero that since Kaname forbid Yuki from visiting the moon dorms alone, that she is being watched. Despite Zero not liking Hanabusa because he is a vampire serving Kaname, he trusts his word given that Hanabusa helped him out regarding his suspicions with Maria. Like in the series, as Yuki figures out who Maria really is, Kaname puts her to sleep, erasing her memory of that night. With Yuki capable of studying for the end of the year exams by herself, Zero is alone with the mark on his neck acting up in pain. The next days, however, Zero manages to show up during exams, however does not end up performing as well as he normally does due to the slight pain in his body, however still manages to score in the top 50, with Yuki just making it into the top 50 herself. Yagari notices Zero in pain, however remains quiet about it in order not to raise alarm to the day class students that vampires are attending Cross Academy. With Yuki relieved after finishing her exams, she encounters Kaname. Yuki takes this opportunity to ask Kaname to please reconsider having her patrol the moon dorms alone again, as she justifies being a prefect, being part of her job, that she does not need someone with her 24/7. Kaname says he will consider it in exchange for dancing with her at the ball. Yuki widens her eyes because she was already planning to go to the ball with Hanabusa, however responds that she will need time to think about it before walking away, not exactly saying no. Rest of the episode remains the same. Episode 11. Again, this episode, continuing with Zero's character arc, is the same. No changes reuniting with his twin brother Ichiru, and Yagari intervening to get Zero and Ichiru, growing more jealous with Zero defending his master, and so on. Yuki and Zero's class end up not having to work at the ball, and with Zero present, even though this time he was not at the top spot, which raised eyebrows from a few day class students like Sayori, Yuki's roommate. Sayori lets Yuki know when they return back to their dorm room that a nicely wrapped box with her name on it was on her bed with a sticky note saying that Headmaster Cross delivered it from the moon dorm for her. Confused, Yuki opens the box, and in there was a nice frilly dress. However, the card did not say who it was from. She detected a faint smell of cologne from the dress. Sayori asked Yuki if she was going with anyone to the ball. Yuki blushes, saying maybe, not revealing that it is Hanabusa she's going with. Like in the series, Yuki meets Zero at the ball entrance since they still had to do their prefect duties even during a social gathering. Headmaster Cross approaches both Yuki and Zero, knowing Yuki is comfortable surrounding the vampires, and assures Zero to not worry about degrading to a level E vampire. Yuki walks into the ballroom to find Hanabusa talking with both Kane and Ruka. Going over to greet them, Hanabusa blushes, saying in his own way that she looked pretty. Yuki takes his hand and they begin dancing. Hanabusa says he was the one who sent Yuki the dress, while she teases him about the cologne scent. Zero leans against the wall watching the ballroom. As Hanabusa proceeds to lean in closer to Yuki's face, her heart beats grew quicker with each second. Kane, however, taps Hanabusa on the shoulder and says that Kaname is requesting Yuki to come and meet him over on the terrace balcony for a dance. Annoyed, Hanabusa excuses himself, and like in the series, both him and Kane sneak away from the ballroom, discovering Shizuka's real body. Hanabusa wanted to ask more, however Kane stops him, thinking if Kaname had something to do with this, while still following orders. Yuki meets Kaname, and Kaname says that she looks lovely. Yuki is flattered at the compliment given to her, however begins to feel uneasy with her headaches coming back again. She proceeds to bear it as she dances with Kaname, while thinking of Hanabusa to cope with the pain and looking forward to seeing him more often again after the ball during her patrols. Yuki asks Kaname if he had something to do with her memories being wiped from the other night with a frowned expression on her face. Kaname admits this, saying he only wanted to protect her while gripping tighter on her waist, causing the pain in Yuki's neck where Hanabusa bit her to resurface, even though the bite was barely visible. Zero finds Yuki upon not seeing her in the ballroom, and glares coldly at Kaname, noticing Yuki's discomfort, asking Yuki to come back inside and do her job as a prefect. Episode 12. So, unlike in the series, Yuki of course is not present in the room with Zero and Shizuka. Instead, she follows where Hanabusa was going, as she wanted to talk with him about something that's been on her mind for a while, since the night he punctured her neck, even though they resolved the matter. Zero manages to shoot and wound Shizuka with his bloody rose, with Yuki still on his mind. Ichiru of course still intervenes, having a brotherly scuffle with Zero. Hanabusa senses Yuki following him because of her blood. Yuki hearing the noise Hanabusa was listening to, she stayed hidden as she sensed something was wrong and that she couldn't risk getting caught up in the mess. So, like in canon, Shizuka dies in Ichiru's arms. Zero and Ichiru resolve their brotherly quarrel, however not fully. Episode 13. This episode concluding Season 1 remains the same. However, Yuki begins to contemplate her feelings for both Zero and Hanabusa, whether she loved one romantically and the other as a close friend and protector, especially after Hanabusa nearly kissed her at the ball. She did not want to fully admit it, but she wondered if Kane had not interrupted them, but she wondered if Kaname had not interrupted to have a dance with Yuki, what would have happened? She sees Kaname, and he lets Yuki know that she can freely visit the moon dorms as she pleases, only during a specific time frame, which has her relieved, so she can still see the night class students more often. Like in canon, when Zero drinks Kaname's blood, the night class students sense Kaname's blood being spilled, Hanabusa included, as he opens up his sketchbook with a drawing of Yuki's face. And that's how Season 1 ends in this rewrite. Alright, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had inspiration to make this given that I haven't seen any YouTube videos covering Vampire Knight Rewritten, fixing any issues the original series had surrounding the characters. Also, if any Kaname fangirls watch this video, please don't leave any negative comments, as this is just a different take on how the story could have gone. Anyway, thanks for watching, and feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more content.